Growing up, I always felt like furniture in my own house. Useful, quiet, mostly ignored unless I got in the way. My parents weren't cruel. That would have been easier to name. They just chose someone else. Lena, my cousin, came to live with us when we were both 10. From day one, they treated her like a gift from the heavens. She was their little jewel. That's what they called her. Jewel. And me? I was told to be grateful. Grateful that I had a roof, meals, and a cousin to look up to. Whenever I tried to shine, it was, "Stop being dramatic, Amelia," or "Let Lena have her moment." Her moment was every moment. School plays, dance recitals, even dinner conversations. She was the headline. I was the footnote. I learned quickly how to disappear in plain sight, to clap for her achievements, even as I sat on my hands just to stop them from trembling. Because what hurt wasn't just being overlooked, it was being expected to applaud it. When college applications rolled around, I didn't even bother asking for help. I knew better by then. They were too busy organizing campus tours for Lena, taking out loans, talking about her future like it was theirs too. I filled out my own forms, applied to state schools, took the bus to a guidance counselor because nobody had the time to drive me. One night, I overheard my dad say, "Amelia's smart enough, but Lena's special." And that one sentence carved something in me I wouldn't understand until much later. I remember sitting in my room, trying to figure out how much I'd need in student loans to cover tuition, housing, books, all while hearing laughter from downstairs. Lena had just gotten accepted into some expensive private university, and my parents threw her a little celebration. Balloons, cake. My mom even opened the bottle of wine she'd been saving since their anniversary. I wasn't invited downstairs. They didn't even know I was listening from the top step, holding my own acceptance letter in my hand. No one asked where I'd be going. No one cared. It wasn't just the money. It was the message. They chose to invest in her. My dad took on an extra shift at the factory. My mom cleaned houses on weekends again, something she swore she'd never do after her back surgery. All for Lena. "She deserves it," they said. "She just needs the right push." I wanted to scream, "What about me?" But I didn't. Because I'd learned by then, my voice didn't echo in that house. What I did instead was simpler. I started making lists, budgeting my life. I got a part-time job at a diner 2 towns over, lied about my age to get it. I printed out a calendar and mapped out deadlines, application fees, scholarship essays. Every checkmark on that paper felt like a rebellion, like proof that I existed, that I mattered, even if only to myself. I didn't tell them what I was doing. I didn't need to. They were too busy planning Lena's dorm room color scheme. The day Lena left for college, the house turned into a theater of farewells. My parents cried, hugged her like they were sending her to war. My mom tucked cash into her purse, whispering, "Don't tell Amelia, this is just between us." I stood in the kitchen, pretending to wash a dish that had been clean for 10 minutes. No one said goodbye to me that morning. No one noticed I didn't come to the car. I think part of me died right there, between the fridge and the sink, the part that still hoped to be seen. A week later, I moved into a cramped dorm room at a public university 3 hours away. No teary goodbye, no help with bags. I paid for my own bedding with tips from the diner and brought pots from the thrift store. But I had something Lena didn't. Hunger. Not just for success, for proof. Proof that I could become something without anyone handing it to me. That maybe, just maybe, the girl they forgot could end up unforgettable. And still, I kept a photo of my parents on my desk. Not out of love. Out of something murkier, like needing a witness to the life I was building alone. I stared at it often in those first weeks, wondering, would they ever see me for who I was becoming? Or was I always meant to be their shadow, even in my brightest moments? I don't remember sleeping much during college. Not because of parties or friends or wild nights out. I didn't have time for those. I worked the early shift at the diner on weekends, cleaned offices at night during the week, and crammed textbooks into every hour in between. My hands smelled like coffee grounds and bleach, and my feet ached constantly. But every time I felt like quitting, I'd picture Lena, lounging somewhere warm, sunglasses on, her Instagram caption something like, "Deserve this break." She'd switched majors twice by then. Dropped a semester to travel and reflect. Meanwhile, I skipped my own birthday senior year because it fell during finals, and I couldn't afford the distraction. I'd watch her stories, sipping wine in Santorini, while I ate instant noodles at my desk, highlighter in one hand, calculator in the other. My parents never called to ask how I was doing, but they reposted every single one of Lena's vacation pictures, with emojis, every time. Still, I kept my head down. I wasn't chasing anyone's approval anymore. I was building something solid, brick by brick. By the time I graduated, I had no debt, 3 job offers, and a tired but relentless belief in myself. My cap and gown came in the mail, no ceremony, no audience. I wore it alone in my apartment one night, looked in the mirror, and whispered, "You did it." It was the only applause I got, and strangely, it was enough. My first job in finance wasn't glamorous. It was spreadsheets, coffee runs, late nights triple-checking numbers that no one noticed, unless I got them wrong. But I showed up early, stayed late, took notes when others rolled their eyes. I didn't flirt, I didn't schmooze, I just worked. Quietly, steadily, always the one in the corner people forgot until they needed something done right. I became reliable, then indispensable, and eventually, promoted. Still, the silence from my family was deafening. On my birthday, they'd send a one-line text. No calls, no questions. Just, "Happy birthday. Hope you're well." I stopped replying. I think they noticed, but not enough to ask why. Lena, of course, was still the group chat star. She had started a lifestyle blog, or maybe it was a wellness business. It changed every few months. My parents bragged that she was an entrepreneur now, as if failure dressed in glitter was still success if it came from her. I didn't argue, I just kept building. My apartment got bigger, my clothes got sharper, but my heart? It stayed guarded. I didn't bring people close, didn't risk softness. Because when the ones who are supposed to love you most treat you like a placeholder, you stop expecting more from anyone else. I learned how to be my own anchor, my own cheerleader, my own home. There were moments, late at night, after another win at work or another quiet dinner alone, when I'd wonder what it might have felt like to have someone proud of me. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt, but genuinely proud. I used to imagine my mother hugging me at graduation, my father telling me I'd made him proud. Simple dreams, dreams I tucked away, like old receipts in the back of a drawer. Useless, forgotten, but still there. I never told anyone what it cost me to get where I was. How many holidays I worked through. How many times I cried in a bathroom stall between shifts. No one saw the girl behind the salary. The girl who gave up dances and dates and family dinners, not because she wanted to, but because no one ever made room for her at the table. I wasn't bitter. I was just removed, detached in the way only the deeply disappointed learn to be. And then, just when I'd almost forgotten the sound of their voices, they came back. One ordinary evening, after years of silence broken only by polite birthday texts, they appeared. On my doorstep. Tired. Nervous. Like they were carrying something heavy they could no longer hold alone. It was a Tuesday. I'd just finished a long meeting and was planning to eat leftovers in silence, maybe light a candle just to make the evening feel less empty. But when I opened the door, there they were. My parents. I hadn't seen them in years, not in person. My first thought wasn't anger. It was confusion. They looked smaller, older than I remembered. My father's shoulders had slumped. My mother's eyes darted like she was trying to find something familiar in me. There was no hug, just a hesitant, "Hi, Amelia," like they weren't sure they were welcome. They asked to come in. I didn't say yes. I just stepped aside. They sat on my couch like guests in a stranger's home, holding their coats in their laps, glancing at framed degrees and bookshelves like they told a story they hadn't read. After a few seconds of awkward small talk, the truth came spilling out in pieces. Lena. Loans. Defaults. Regrets. My mother twisted her wedding ring while my father stared at the floor. "We thought she'd finish," he said quietly. "We thought she'd make something of it." Turns out, Lena had left school 2 years in. Didn't tell them at first. Said she needed to find herself, whatever that means. Traveled on borrowed money, started ventures that fizzled, burned through every cent they had. Now the creditors were calling, and the savings were gone. And for the first time in my life, they were looking at me, not to dismiss me, but to rescue them. I listened, that's all I did. I sat across from them with my hands folded, my face still. Inside, my thoughts ran wild, like a dam cracking. Every birthday they skipped. Every time they called Lena their daughter in front of me. Every night I fell asleep knowing I didn't matter enough. It all rushed back, loud and sharp. But I said nothing, just nodded. Let them speak. Let them scramble. It was strange, really, how quickly desperation made people remember you existed. "We know we made mistakes," my mother whispered, her voice trembling just enough to seem sincere. "But you're the only one who's doing well now. We're still your parents." That line hit like ice in the chest. Still your parents. As if biology alone entitled them to the life I had built from nothing. As if forgetting me for decades could be wiped clean with a shared last name and a guilt-laced apology. My father leaned in then, not angry, just tired. "You've always been strong, Amelia. We admire that. You've done so well." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. The first compliment I'd ever heard from his mouth, and it came not at my graduation, not at my first promotion, but at his lowest moment, when I had something he wanted. It wasn't admiration. It was survival. They didn't ask directly at first. Just danced around it, phrases like, "a little help," "short term," "family supports family." I let them talk. Let them fill the air with words that tried to patch years of silence. And all the while, I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I wanted them to sit in it. In the silence I used to live in the weight of being ignored for so long. I could see them shift in their seats, uncomfortable, unsure. That was new for them. Being the ones who needed to be chosen. At one point, my mother reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold, shaky. "We don't have anyone else," she said. I didn't pull away, but I didn't squeeze back either. I just looked at her, really looked. The woman who had once told me Lena was the one with potential. And in her eyes, I saw it. Fear. Not just fear of losing their house or facing debt collectors. Fear that maybe I'd become a woman she didn't know how to read anymore, or reach. I told them I'd think about it, that I needed time. And I walked them to the door, watching as they shuffled back into the night. They didn't look back, and I didn't offer comfort. As I shut the door, I leaned against it and exhaled. I wasn't angry. I wasn't vengeful. I was something they'd never prepared for. Calm. And I already knew exactly what I was going to say when they came back. We met at a quiet cafe 3 days later. I chose the place. Not too loud, not too cozy, neutral ground. I arrived early, ordered tea I wouldn't drink, and laid out everything I'd brought, a folder full of forgotten history. When they walked in, I saw hope flash across their faces. My mother smiled too quickly. My father tried to meet my eyes like nothing had ever broken. They thought my silence meant surrender, that I'd agree, maybe even offer more than they asked for. They still didn't know me. I slid the folder across the table without a word. Inside were copies of my college acceptance letters, the ones I filled out alone, my tuition payment receipts, my scholarship essays, a photo of me in my graduation gown, standing alone in my kitchen, and at the very top, a handwritten note from my sophomore year where I asked them for help with books. My mother had scribbled across the bottom, "Ask your advisor. We're stretched with Lena." I watched their faces as they flipped through it all. Slowly, silently, the color drained from their skin. Then I spoke. Calmly, almost kindly. I built this life from scratch. No one clapped. No one carried me. I did it in the shadows, while you poured every dream into someone else, and she walked away from it. My voice didn't shake. If anything, it was steadier than ever. I wanted them to hear me with no anger, just truth. I didn't need to raise my voice. The evidence had already done that for me. They didn't interrupt. For once, they couldn't. My father just kept blinking, like each page was a slap he hadn't seen coming. My mother held her breath so tightly I thought she might crack. "We didn't know," she finally whispered. "We didn't realize it was that hard for you." I smiled then, not with warmth, but with something colder. Not cruel, just honest. That was the point, wasn't it? You never looked close enough to know. My voice softened, but not out of sympathy, out of certainty. You made a choice. Every single time. And now you're asking me to fix the consequences of your favorite mistake. My mother began to cry. Softly, hands pressed to her lips like she was trying to keep the sound in. My father reached for the folder again, as if reviewing the facts might change them. I didn't flinch. I let them sit in the weight of it. The years, the cost, the reality that the quiet daughter they ignored had been paying attention all along. Then, as gently as if I were offering them a drink refill, I gave them the answer they'd come for. "Yes, I'll help you, but not in the way you expect." I let the words hang in the air, heavy, confusing, deliberate. My mother looked up, hope flaring again. My father leaned in, relief already softening his brow. And I waited, just a second longer, before delivering what they never saw coming. "I'll help you," I repeated, "by letting you face what you created." My tone was steady, not angry, not bitter, just done. "You taught me how to survive without support. Now you'll learn how to survive without mine." My mother let out a soft, broken sound, the kind that usually drew sympathy. But not this time. I had no tears left for that version of her, the one who stood by while I faded into the background of my own childhood. "I'm not your safety net. I'm not your reward for finally noticing me," I said. "I'm the daughter you forgot existed until she became useful." My father's mouth opened, but no words came. Just a stunned silence that settled between us like fog. I stood up then, slowly, tucking the folder back into my bag. Not to erase it, but to carry it forward, as proof of who I'd had to become. Calm, independent, unapologetically unwilling to be the fallback plan. I looked at them one last time. My voice was quiet, but final. "I forgive you. But I won't save you." And with that, I walked out. Into the sun. Into my own life. Behind me, the cafe door closed with the softest click. But to me, it sounded like a vault ceiling shut. Not out of vengeance, out of peace. A peace I had earned, alone. These days, my life is quiet, and I like it that way. No chaos, no begging to be seen, No proving my worth to people who never looked. I wake up in a space I paid for, sip my morning coffee in silence, and know exactly who I am. Not someone else's daughter. Not someone's backup plan. Just Amelia, a woman who built a life out of scraps and silence. And finally, it fits me. Not like a borrowed dress, but like skin I grew into. Every now and then, I see Lena online. She's rebranded herself as a life coach, selling inspiration in pastel fonts and talking about empowerment between affiliate links. I don't judge her. I barely feel anything at all. That girl who once got the world handed to her now seems to be grasping for pieces of it. Maybe she'll find her version of peace. Maybe not. But either way, she no longer lives in the center of my story. As for my parents, I hear they moved into a smaller home. A friend from the old neighborhood mentioned it in passing. I didn't ask for details. What would I say? They gambled everything on their jewel, the bright, loud, shiny hope. And in the end, it slipped through their fingers. Meanwhile, the daughter they overlooked? She didn't shine to impress. She became solid, unshakable. The kind of woman who doesn't need anyone to notice her to know her own value. I spend my time now with women who remind me of who I used to be, overlooked, underestimated, barely holding things together. I mentor young professionals through a local nonprofit, help them navigate job interviews, build financial plans, speak up in rooms where they were taught to shrink. Some come from foster care, others from homes full of love but low on resources. But they all carry something in their eyes that I recognize instantly: hunger. Not for attention, but for stability, for self-worth, for freedom. Sometimes they ask me why I care. Why I spend my time this way when I could be chasing bigger roles, flashier titles, more money. I always smile and tell them the truth. Because no one did this for me. And I know what it feels like to build alone. That's the thing about being forgotten. It teaches you how not to forget others. It carves out space in you for empathy so deep, it turns into purpose. Not pity, empowerment. And when they succeed, when they get the job, negotiate the raise, walk out of a bad situation with their head held high, I feel something that no paycheck has ever given me. Not pride in myself, but pride in them. Because helping someone else rise without expecting anything in return, that's the kind of legacy I want, the kind of echo I wish someone had left behind for me. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that little girl. The one who sat on the stairs with her college acceptance letter in hand, while laughter echoed from the living room that never belonged to her. I wish I could go back and sit beside her, not to fix anything. Just to say, you were never invisible. You were just surrounded by people who chose not to see. And maybe that truth wouldn't have made it easier, but it would have made her feel less alone. I don't carry resentment anymore. That's the beauty of healing. It makes space where bitterness used to live. I don't call my parents. They don't call me. We exist in separate chapters now, and I've stopped trying to edit the pages they wrote without me. What matters is the story I've written for myself. Every sentence earned, every choice mine. No longer the forgotten daughter, simply a woman who decided she was worth remembering. And when people ask me how I became so grounded, so self-assured, I smile softly and offer them this. They bet on a jewel and ignored the diamond they already had.
I've decided to start a new life without you. The words hung in the air of the upscale restaurant where we'd gathered to celebrate my daughter's college graduation. Gregory, my husband of 28 years, stood with his champagne glass still raised, his announcement displacing the toast he was supposed to be making to Amelia's achievements. The clinking of silverware ceased. Conversations halted mid-sentence. 50 pairs of eyes darted between Gregory and me, waiting for my reaction, for the tears, the shouting, the dramatic exit everyone expected. Instead, I smiled. Congratulations on your honesty. My name is Bianca Caldwell. I am 54 years old, and until this moment, I had been playing the role of the devoted wife and mother perfectly. I put my own career aspirations on hold to support Gregory through 3 business ventures, 2 career changes, and countless finding himself phases. I raised our brilliant daughter Amelia, who sat beside me now, her graduation cap still perched on her head, her expression frozen in horror. From the corner of my eye, I could see Cassandra Wells, Gregory's much younger girlfriend, shifting uncomfortably at the back table where she sat with people I had considered friends for decades. The same friends who apparently knew about the affair but never thought to tell me. The same Cassandra who had attended our Christmas parties, who had once called me for advice about her career. With practiced calm, I reached into my handbag and pulled out a sealed cream-colored envelope. I placed it gently beside Gregory's plate. "What's this?" he asked, his triumphant expression faltering. "Something for you to read later," I replied, keeping my voice steady. I turned to Amelia, whose face had gone pale. I kissed her cheek. "I am so proud of you, sweetheart. This day is still about your accomplishment." Then I stood, smoothed my dress, and addressed our stunned guests. "Please enjoy your meal. I wish you all a lovely afternoon." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, my head held high, feeling 50 pairs of eyes following me. The heavy door swung shut behind me, cutting off the beginning of anxious murmurs. Outside, the Augusta summer heat hit me like a wall, but I welcomed it. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely. Behind me, I heard the restaurant door open and slam shut, followed by Gregory's voice, no longer confident, but high-pitched and frantic. "Bianca, what the hell is this? What have you done?" I kept walking, allowing myself a small smile. The envelope I'd handed him contained the beginning of my revenge, one I'd been meticulously planning for months. I had always been the practical one in our marriage. While Gregory dreamed big and took risks, I maintained the stability our family needed. I was the one who saved for Amelia's education, when Gregory invested unwisely in his friend's restaurant venture. I was the one who worked extra hours as a finance manager at Truvanta Corp. When his midlife crisis led him to quit his stable position, to follow his passion, selling handcrafted furniture. A passion that lasted approximately 6 months before he grew bored. My own dreams, opening a financial consultancy for women, were perpetually on hold. After Amelia graduates, I told myself. After Gregory finds stability. 3 months ago, I noticed discrepancies in our joint accounts. Small transfers to an account I didn't recognize. Having spent 20 years managing our family finances, these irregularities stood out like red flags. I could have confronted Gregory immediately, but something held me back. Perhaps it was intuition, or perhaps it was the growing distance between us over the past year. Instead, I began quietly investigating. What I discovered was worse than I imagined. Gregory had been systematically moving funds to a separate account for over a year. He had also been taking Cassandra to expensive restaurants, purchasing jewelry, and looking at beachfront property, all while telling me we needed to tighten our belts for retirement. Then came the text messages I discovered when Gregory left his phone unlocked. Messages about their new life together. Messages about how he was finally breaking free. Messages about their plans for the day after Amelia's graduation, the day he had chosen to make his grand exit from our marriage. What Gregory had forgotten, or perhaps never fully grasped, was that I had been a financial professional for 30 years. I understood money trails. I knew how to trace assets. And most importantly, I remembered the prenuptial agreement we had signed 28 years ago, when I had more family money than he did. The agreement he had insisted upon, ironically to protect his future earnings, contained a fidelity clause that would prove to be his undoing. While Gregory plotted his escape with Cassandra, I was building my case. I consulted with attorneys. I documented every hidden transfer. I gathered evidence of their affair. I prepared divorce papers. I timed everything perfectly, knowing Gregory would want to wait until after Amelia's graduation to avoid ruining her big day. What he didn't expect was that I would serve the divorce papers the morning of the graduation, before his planned announcement, but with the papers still safely hidden in court records, not yet accessible to him. What Gregory didn't know was that I was always 3 steps ahead. I didn't return to the restaurant. Instead, I drove to our home, a spacious colonial in Augusta's historic district that we had purchased 15 years ago. The house that Gregory had already promised to Cassandra, according to text messages that he didn't realize I had seen. I parked in the driveway and calmly entered what had been our shared space for over a decade. Everything looked the same. The family photos on the walls, the antique grandfather clock that had been my father's, the worn leather couch where Gregory and I had once dreamed of our future together. Yet everything had changed. I went upstairs to the master bedroom and opened the closet. Gregory's clothing was already packed in suitcases, hidden in the back, ready for his planned departure tomorrow. I smiled at his predictability. He had always been meticulous about clothing, but careless about the important things. My phone buzzed incessantly with messages from friends at the restaurant, from Amelia, even from Gregory's sister Diana, who had flown in for the graduation. I responded only to my daughter. "I'm okay. This isn't your burden to carry. Enjoy your graduation day. We'll talk tonight. I love you." I had protected Amelia from the truth for months, not wanting to overshadow her final semester with family drama. She would be angry that I hadn't told her, but I knew she would understand eventually. Amelia had inherited my practicality along with her father's charisma, a powerful combination that had helped her graduate with honors. 3 hours later, I heard Gregory's car in the driveway. The front door slammed open. "Bianca!" he shouted, his voice echoing through the house. "Where are you?" I was sitting in the living room, calmly reviewing documents on my laptop. I closed it as he stormed in, his face flushed with anger, the envelope clutched in his hand. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, waving the papers. "You served me with divorce papers? Today of all days?" "I thought it aligned nicely with your plans," I replied calmly. "You wanted to start your new life. I'm simply helping facilitate the transition." "You had no right to—" "I had every right," I interrupted, my voice steady. "Just as you had every right to choose Cassandra. We all make choices, Gregory." "The prenup expired years ago," he said, his voice suddenly smug. "Any lawyer will tell you that." I allowed myself a small smile. Actually, it didn't. Section 12 specifically states that the fidelity clause remains in effect for the duration of the marriage. Your lawyer should have explained that to you. Oh wait, you didn't consult one, did you? The color drained from his face as reality sank in. The prenup he had insisted upon to protect his potential wealth would now cost him everything. The house, the vacation property in Savannah, his portion of our retirement accounts. His grand gesture at the restaurant had just become the most expensive announcement of his life. "You can't do this to me," Gregory said, collapsing onto the couch. "We built this life together, and you chose to end it," I replied, though not in the way you planned. Gregory's phone buzzed persistently in his pocket. He glanced at it, then ignored it. Cassandra, no doubt, wondering where he was and why he wasn't following their carefully orchestrated plan. "You've always been calculating, Bianca, but this is cold," he said, trying a different approach. "What about our history? 28 years together means nothing?" I studied him. This man I had loved for nearly 3 decades. The man who had held my hand through 2 miscarriages before we had Amelia. The man who had once surprised me with a weekend trip to Charleston for our 10th anniversary. When had he changed? Or had he always been this person, and I had been too devoted to notice? Our history meant everything to me. I answered truthfully. That's why your betrayal hurt so deeply. His expression softened momentarily, perhaps seeing an opening. Then maybe we can fix this. I made a mistake. People make mistakes. This wasn't a mistake, Gregory. This was a calculated plan spanning more than a year. You systematically moved our money. You looked at property with her. You planned to announce our separation publicly to humiliate me. His face hardened again. You're exaggerating. Am I? I picked up my phone, opened the recording app, and played his own voice. After the graduation, I'll tell her it's over. A public setting is better. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Then Cassandra's voice. And she has no idea about the money. Gregory again. None. Bianca trusts me completely. That's her weakness. The blood drained from his face. You recorded our conversations? That's illegal. Not in Georgia when one party consents, I responded. And not when it's in your own home. I didn't record your private moments with Cassandra. I'm not cruel. Just the conversations about your plans to defraud me. Gregory stood suddenly, agitated. I need to make some calls. Of course, I said. Your attorney might be a good start. I'll be staying at Diana's tonight. Diana's? He sputtered. My sister's house? I nodded. She's quite upset with you, actually. She was the one who first spotted you and Cassandra together last Christmas. She didn't tell me immediately. She confronted you first. You promised her it was nothing, that you would end it. When she realized you hadn't, she came to me. This was another blow he hadn't anticipated. Diana and I had always been close, but Gregory never imagined his own sister would choose my side. Everyone's betraying me, he muttered. Ironic, isn't it? I gathered my purse and a small overnight bag I had packed earlier. You have until tomorrow evening to remove your things from the house. After that, the locks will be changed. As I headed toward the door, Gregory called after me, desperation in his voice. What about Amelia? Have you thought about how this affects her? I paused, anger finally breaking through my calm facade. Don't you dare use our daughter as a shield, Gregory. You certainly weren't thinking about her when you were planning your new beachfront life with Cassandra. His phone buzzed again. This time, he looked at it and groaned. Problem? I asked. Cassandra is at the apartment already. She's moved her things in. I couldn't help but smile. The apartment you put in both your names? The lease you signed last month? Gregory nodded, looking confused. You might want to check with the leasing office. That application was flagged for credit issues and never completed. The agent called our home phone to verify information. I handled it myself. I walked out the door, leaving Gregory to face the first of many consequences. His perfectly planned new life was unraveling faster than he could process. Diana lived in a charming bungalow across town, close to the university where she taught literature. When I arrived, she greeted me with a fierce hug. I just heard from Amelia, she said, pulling me inside. Are you okay? I'm better than I expected, I admitted, following her to the kitchen where a bottle of wine was already open. I never thought Gregory would make such a spectacle, Diana said, pouring 2 glasses. The restaurant? In front of everyone? He's lost his mind. It was meant to humiliate me, I explained, accepting the glass. A public rejection so I couldn't fight back without looking hysterical. Diana's face darkened. My brother always did have a flair for drama, but this is beyond anything I expected from him. We settled in her sunroom, surrounded by potted plants and bookshelves. Diana had never married, preferring her independence and academic pursuits. Over the years, I had sometimes envied her freedom. What did you put in that envelope that made him so upset? She asked. I explained the contents, the divorce filing, the evidence of his financial deception, and most importantly, The prenuptial agreement that would leave him with far less than he had planned. The prenup, Diana mused. I remember when he insisted on it. Father had just given him that money for his first business, and he was so worried about protecting it. She laughed bitterly. The irony is delicious. My phone rang. Amelia. I took a deep breath before answering. Mom, she said immediately, her voice strained. I'm coming over to Aunt Diana's. Honey, you don't have to. I'm already on my way, she interrupted. Dad is telling everyone you've lost your mind, that you've been planning this for months. He's saying horrible things. Of course he was. Gregory always rewrote narratives to cast himself as the victim. Let him talk, I said. The truth will become clear soon enough. 20 minutes later, Amelia arrived, still in her graduation dress, but with her makeup smudged from crying. She fell into my arms like she used to as a child after a nightmare. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. I didn't want to ruin your final semester, I explained. You worked so hard for this day. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Well, Dad took care of ruining it anyway. We moved to Diana's living room, where Amelia finally got the full story. How I had discovered the affair, the financial deceptions, and the plans Gregory and Cassandra had made. I knew something was off with Dad, Amelia admitted. He's been different, distracted, always on his phone. But I never imagined. None of us want to see these things in people we love, Diana said gently. My phone buzzed with a text message from Philip Anderson, my attorney. The emergency filing had been approved. The accounts I had identified were frozen, pending the divorce proceedings. Gregory now had limited access to funds, enough for living expenses, but not enough to follow through on the property purchases he had planned with Cassandra. I showed the message to Diana and Amelia. Good, Amelia said firmly. He deserves it. My daughter's loyalty warmed me, but I wasn't naive. He's still your father, I reminded her. Your relationship with him is separate from what's happening between us. Amelia shook her head. Maybe someday, but right now I can't even look at him. He hugged me this morning and told me how proud he was, all while planning to blow up our family hours later. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Diana went to answer it, returning moments later with a troubled expression. It's Gregory, she said. And he's not alone. I steeled myself as Diana led Gregory and Cassandra into the living room. Cassandra looked uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other, her eyes darting around the room. She was 37. Not exactly a trophy wife, but still 17 years my junior, with shoulder-length blonde hair and the kind of confidence that comes from never having faced real hardship. Gregory, by contrast, looked furious. His earlier desperation had hardened into anger. Bianca, you need to stop this insanity, he demanded. Unfreeze the accounts. We can discuss this like reasonable adults. Amelia stood up, placing herself slightly in front of me. Maybe you should have tried being reasonable before announcing to everyone that you were leaving Mom. Gregory's eyes widened, as if just noticing our daughter. Amelia, this doesn't involve you. Doesn't involve me? She echoed incredulously. You blew up our family on my graduation day and it doesn't involve me? Cassandra touched Gregory's arm. Greg, maybe we should go. He shook her off. No, I'm not leaving until Bianca agrees to be rational about this. Diana folded her arms. My sister-in-law seems to be the only rational person in this scenario. You're the one who created this mess, Gregory. I remained seated, watching the drama unfold. For years, I had been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over conflicts and kept everyone happy. That role was exhausting, and I had finally set it down. The accounts will remain frozen until the preliminary hearing, I said calmly. That's in 3 days. The judge will determine appropriate asset division at that time. 3 days? Gregory sputtered. What am I supposed to do for 3 days? You have your personal account, I reminded him. The one you've been funneling money into for the past year. That should be sufficient. Cassandra's head whipped toward Gregory. You have a separate account? With how much in it? An interesting dynamic was emerging. Clearly, Gregory hadn't been entirely forthcoming with Cassandra either. Gregory ignored her question. This is vindictive, Bianca. This isn't like you. Perhaps you never really knew me, I replied. Just as I apparently never really knew you. Amelia turned to Cassandra. Did you know he was going to announce it like that? At my graduation celebration? Cassandra had the decency to look ashamed. I thought he was going to talk to your mother privately. The announcement today was unexpected. Gregory shot her a betrayed look. Cracks were already forming in their united front. I think you both should leave, Diana said firmly. You've upset Amelia enough for one day. Amelia, Gregory pleaded. You understand that relationships change, don't you? Sometimes people grow apart. My daughter's face hardened in a way I had never seen before. What I understand is that you're a coward who couldn't even give Mom the dignity of a private conversation. What I understand is that you were stealing from our family while I was working 2 jobs to help pay for my textbooks because you said money was tight. Gregory paled. That's not how it was. It's exactly how it was. Amelia cut him off. Please leave, Dad. I can't look at you right now. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Gregory turned to go, Cassandra trailing behind him. At the door, he paused and looked back at me. This isn't over, Bianca. I'll fight you on this. I met his gaze steadily. You're welcome to try. After they left, Amelia collapsed next to me on the sofa, tears streaming down her face. I've never talked to Dad like that. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. Sometimes standing up for what's right is painful. Diana brought us fresh glasses of wine. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. Indeed, I thought. This ending was just the beginning of something new. The preliminary hearing took place in a small courtroom on a rainy Tuesday morning. I arrived with my attorney, Philip, while Gregory came with a lawyer he had hastily retained, a young associate from a firm that specialized in corporate law, not family matters. Gregory's poor choice of representation was yet another consequence of his rushed planning. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and no patience for dramatics, reviewed the prenuptial agreement carefully. This document appears to be in order, she said, looking over her reading glasses at Gregory's attorney. Do you contest its validity? The young lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, we believe the agreement has expired due to the length of time that has passed. Section 18 clearly states that the duration is for the term of the marriage, plus any legal proceedings resulting from its dissolution. The judge read aloud. There is no expiration date indicated. Gregory leaned forward to whisper urgently to his lawyer, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, the judge continued, the evidence of systematic fund transfers appears to violate the financial disclosure requirements in Section 23. She shuffled through the papers, then looked up. I am ruling to maintain the freeze on joint accounts pending full financial discovery. Mr. Caldwell's personal account will remain accessible to him. The family home will remain in Mrs. Caldwell's possession during proceedings, as stipulated in the prenuptial agreement's infidelity clause. Gregory's face flushed dark red. This is outrageous, he muttered, loud enough for me to hear. The judge fixed him with a stern look. Mr. Caldwell, I suggest you review the agreement you signed more carefully. This court will reconvene in 30 days for the full hearing after discovery is complete. As we left the courtroom, Gregory caught up to me in the hallway. Bianca, please. We need to talk about this reasonably. 28 years together has to count for something. It counted for everything, I replied. until you decided it didn't. I walked away, leaving him standing alone in the courthouse corridor, the weight of his choices finally beginning to sink in. Word spread quickly through our social circle. Friends called daily, some offering support, others seeking gossip. I maintained a dignified silence about the details, simply saying, "Gregory and I are separating. These things happen." Meanwhile, Gregory's carefully constructed facade was crumbling. The image he had cultivated, successful businessman, devoted family man, was tarnished beyond repair. The financial freeze meant he couldn't follow through on promises made to Cassandra. The beachfront property they had been planning to purchase fell through. The luxury car he had put a deposit on had to be canceled. 2 weeks after the hearing, Diana called me, her voice tinged with amusement. "Have you heard the latest? Cassandra moved out." "Already?" I wasn't entirely surprised, but the speed was impressive. Apparently, she discovered that Gregory's business isn't doing as well as he claimed. The substantial savings he talked about don't exist. She told her friend Jennifer that she didn't sign up to date a man with financial problems. I couldn't help but laugh. He always was good at creating illusions. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. The financial security I had always maintained, separate from our joint accounts, gave me freedom Gregory hadn't anticipated. I rented a small office space downtown and began setting up the consultancy I had dreamed about for years. My first clients were 2 women going through divorces of their own. Word of mouth brought more. I specialized in helping women understand their finances during major life transitions: divorces, widowhood, career changes. The work was immediately fulfilling in a way my corporate job never had been. Amelia, who had accepted a job with a marketing firm in Charleston, called me regularly. "I'm so proud of you, Mom," she told me after I described my growing client list. "You're helping people during their worst moments." "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me earlier," I replied. Preparing women for whatever might come. Being needed for my expertise rather than my caregiving was a novel and empowering experience. Word count, 300. The final divorce hearing fell on what would have been our 29th anniversary. A fitting end to a chapter of my life that had lasted nearly 3 decades. Gregory arrived looking haggard. I later learned that his business was struggling without my financial support and guidance. Cassandra was long gone, already dating a real estate developer from Savannah. Most of our mutual friends had distanced themselves from him after learning the full story of his deception. The judge upheld the prenuptial agreement in its entirety. Gregory left with his personal possessions, his struggling business, and the money in his private account, which, after paying his attorney, was barely enough to secure a small apartment. I retained our home, my retirement accounts, and 70% of our joint investments, exactly as the prenuptial agreement stipulated in cases of infidelity. The justice was poetic. The very document Gregory had insisted upon to protect himself had become his downfall. As we left the courtroom, Gregory approached me one last time. "I made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "Is there any chance we could—" "No," I interrupted, gentle but firm. "That door is closed." "I understand," he replied, and for once, I believed he did. "I hope you find happiness, Bianca. You deserve it." It was perhaps the first honest thing he had said to me in years. 6 months later, my consultancy, Caldwell Financial Transitions, was thriving. I had moved from the small office to a larger space and hired 2 associates. I specialized in helping women secure their financial futures, particularly through major life changes. Amelia visited often, proud of what I had built. "You know what's ironic?" she said during one visit. "If Dad had just been honest from the beginning, he might have kept half of everything." "Sometimes people can't see beyond what they want in the moment," I replied. The woman who had once defined herself as Gregory's wife and Amelia's mother had discovered a new identity. mentor, business owner, and advocate. The envelope I had handed Gregory at the restaurant hadn't just been my escape plan. It had been the key to a door I never knew existed. Behind it, I found not just revenge, but reinvention. In securing my financial future, I had also reclaimed something far more valuable: myself.